Sorry. Good evening. I'm calling to order the January 12th, 2026 meeting of the Arlington Select Board. I am Select Board Chair Diane Mahan, and to my right, your left, is
Eric Helmuth.
Jane Morgan.
Steve DeCourcy.
James Feeney, Town Manager.
Michael Cunningham, Town Council.
Ashley Marr, Board Administrator.
Thank you. First items on the agenda are our consent agenda, minutes of meeting, December 22nd, 2025, contractor drain layer renewal, Milltown Plumbing and Heating out of Chelmsford, Mass., and U.S. Pavement Services out of Woburn, Massachusetts. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
By Mr. DeCourcy. Is there a second?
A second.
By Mr. Helmuth. Any questions or comments? If not, on a motion by Mr. DeCourcy, seconded by Mr. Helmuth, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, unanimous votes. We go to licenses and permits. First, we have Bengal Inc. doing business as Little Joe's Convenience, Kamal Hassan, 206 Summer Street, for approval of a food vendor license. If you could come up to the table. And if you could say your name again, and I apologize if I said it incorrectly. Oh, you could sit, sorry. Sorry, I should have turned that.
Kamal Hussain.
And you're here for a food vendor license?
Yes.
Okay. Anything you'd like to say on that, or it's okay if you don't?
No, thanks.
He wants to get back home because he's going to get up early tomorrow for his business. Any motions, questions, comments? Mr. DeCourcy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll move approval subject to all conditions. And Mr. Hussain, the only thing I would comment is that within the inspection reports, there are some references there about coming into compliance with the sign bylaw. There are fewer signs at your location now than there were under the prior owner, but there is a sign bylaw. So if you could work with the town, whether it's the building inspector, just to make sure that you're in compliance with that. And that is spelled out in the inspection report.
Okay, yeah, I will do.
Is there a second?
Madam Chair, I'll second that. I'd also like to second the concerns about the signage as well. It's something that we do hear about from residents, and I think it's just a matter of fairness that the town does its best to enforce that. So when we have an opportunity at the issuance of a permit, we do appreciate you making that effort to make sure that the signs are now compliant.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, any further questions or comments? If not, on a motion to move approval, subject to all conditions, by Mr. DeCourcy, seconded by Mr. Helmuth. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, unanimous vote. Thank you so much. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see.
We next go to, for approval, all alcohol package store change of manager by Mystic Wine Shop, Greg Weber, 901 Mass Ave, and we have Learned Counsel.
Madam Chair and members of the board, thank you for this opportunity to address you. You know, it's been now about 17 years since I retired from town employee, and people ask me, what is it you miss about it? I said, I don't miss anything about it, except, of course, the Board of Selectmen's meetings. I sit up at the Kentwood on Monday nights and just look longingly down towards the town hall. But, life goes on. In any event, I'm here tonight. We know we have a busy agenda. We won't belabor the point, but I do have with me my client, Eric Faiola, who is the owner of Mystic Wine. I had the privilege of representing Eric when he applied for a license from this board some 13 years ago. I've also represented the Faiola family on a number of matters through the years. As you probably know, they are fairly prominent businessmen, business people in town, run a business on School of Court for many years. The matter before you tonight is an application from Eric's store to change managers. The prior manager retired, and the individual that will be speaking with you tonight is Greg, and as you know, his mother worked probably at the selectman's office. He's a resident of the town, a father, and he has some words he'd like to present to you tonight. But before doing that, I'll just ask Eric to introduce him, and we'll move right along. Eric.
Good evening, Select Board. I'm Eric Bale, the owner of Mystic Wine Shop. I'd like to present Greg Weber as the new manager for my store. I came across Greg several years ago. Greg had a handyman business, and during the winter when the outside work would slow down and not wanting to do much outdoor work, he came to me and would work part-time during the winters and then go back to his handyman business during the summertime. And last January, February, he came back looking for some more work, and we brought him on board part-time. And my manager, Mike Woodward, retired, and so I brought Greg on as a full-time employee and applied for you guys to the town to make him my full-time manager. In the time that he's been working for me previously as part-time, he made a strong impression upon me on his work ethic. I hear a lot about his son, so I know he's a great dad. He's very involved with his schooling and activities after school. And I see the reaction from customers that see him, that know him as a handyman, and they're so pleased to see him working at the store and seeing how happy he is in conversation with them. It's great. So I'd like to introduce Greg Weber as my new manager for the store if it's approved by the town.
Go ahead. As you know, there are a couple of previous driving under the influence matters that Greg wants to address with the board directly. I would only point out, not by way of excuse, but the most previous one is almost 16 years ago, and the prior one is about 19 years ago. And I really think, from what I understand, that Greg has really turned his life around and would like to address the board directly. Greg.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Board of, appreciate the opportunity to come in front of you this evening. And like John had just said, I see that I'm here as trying to become a manager in the liquor industry, and that could be a very good, big concern with seeing that I have 2 DUIs in the past, which is, again, 19 to 16 years ago. And by no means do I think over time, or the fact that I was young and made some very poor decisions, should that be forgotten, that, you know, I need to be very adamant about coming before you guys, and being a part of this community is one of my biggest concerns. As the years went by, I've worked many jobs for many years with the Wanamaker Hardware and with the community, about 9 years there, and I've had no mistakes or alcohol incidences within that time. I've tried to turn my life around, which I feel as though I have, very much so, by being a part of the community, by enduring things in my children's activities within the school or Little League, things like that. And I do have a few things I would like, if you'd like to see, a letter from the hardware store representing myself there for many years and how I was employed and with no incidences, and I took it very seriously. I also have a certificate through the TIPS Massachusetts certification program, seeing that if this is approved, I'm going to be wanting to take a full step forward in making sure the community is safe. That's my biggest concern. Seeing my past incidences actually has told me the importance of how things can happen for not just myself but everyone else involved. So I feel as though being in a position where I can make a difference is I'm pretty proud of and honored to be able to do that if approved again. One other thing that I would like to say is just that I was also running my own handyman business for about 5 years, like my boss has just mentioned, And doing that has actually opened up my eyes to, again, being a part of the community, being helpful, being able to do pro bono opportunities for the elderly and the older citizens of this community. Being able to put a hand out and watch my kids grow up in this community has been a blessing. And I've been here for 43 years. I know a lot of people, and a lot of people know my past, which hasn't been perfect, obviously, but I believe that they also have seen me grow, and I've had the opportunity to reach out and better not only myself, but my family and the community. One small thing that I've also remembered I'd like to share with you, we have the Art Open Studio here on Mass Ave, and I was also honored to be invited by the people who are now running that studio in brainstorming and being a part of the whole idea and process of opening a studio like that to help the community, bring out, you know, the artistry in people, help give people places to go and do extra things that is safe and healthy. So I'm always trying to put more into the community and give back to what they gave me. And I appreciate all your time. Thank you very much.
Any questions you have?
Turn it to my colleagues. Any questions, any motions?
Motion to approve the change of manager for the Mystic Wine Shop.
Motion by Mrs. Morgan, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. DeCoursey. Any other questions, comments? Mr. Helmut?
Thank you. I appreciate everybody came tonight to speak. I appreciate the applicant's candor and honesty, and I think that speaks to character and to, you know, how seriously you take the job and responsibilities. So we wish you well. I think that you have a good attorney, certainly aware of the state law on the matter, and that a third offense could really be a problem in the future for, you know, an alcohol-related offense for continuance of this. But that said, I think that this board has a good history, and I certainly do, of giving people a second chance when it's earned, and it seems to me that very much that you have. So I wish you well in that.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
As I said before the meeting, I've spoken to several town leaders who've known you for 20 years, sometimes more, who speak very, very highly of you and have some very laudatory things to say about you. So with that, no further questions or comments. A motion to approve the change of manager made by Mrs. Morgan, seconded by Mr. DeCoursey. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, unanimous vote.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We will now go to open forum. If you're joining us by Zoom and you would like to speak under open forum, please use the raise hand feature now, which is usually the little yellow hand at the bottom of your laptop or computer screen. Except in unusual circumstances, any matter presented for consideration of the board shall neither be acted upon nor a decision made the night of the presentation. In accordance with the policy under which the open forum was established, it should be noted that there is a 3-minute time limit to present a concern or request. Is there anyone here who would like to speak under open forum?
Yes.
If you name and address just for the record.
Thanks. My name is Mark Kepline, 11 Palmer Street, Arlington, town meeting member for Precinct 9. I wanted to thank the board for its timely address of road safety and the 25-mile-an-hour speed limits. This is just 2 weeks past the winter solstice and the darkest part of the year and the most dangerous on the roads. Nighttime speeds of 25 miles an hour are entirely appropriate given the very short distances where one might perceive a pedestrian in the street or sometimes a cyclist without a reflector or headlight. Personally, recently, I discovered Eddie Bauer has finally made an insulated reflective jacket, which I'm wearing. So that's available now. You got to search for the high beam on their site sometimes, but given it's darkest in winter, one would assume that these reflective garments would be, you could buy an insulated one. So other than a safety jacket or hoodie, finally, there's a down insulated jacket, and it's about $100. Otherwise, you can buy a shell online at Temu or Amazon or Walmart.com and wear that over an insulated jacket. Sadly, I wish more pedestrians would wear attire to be seen and be safe. There's retro-reflective hats, dog leashes, dog collars, wristbands, if you could buy a pair of wristbands for $1, and that'll improve your safety greatly. Wearing this jacket, it's amazing on the street, the effect it has on drivers. I am more visible at night than I am during the day wearing this. It just blasts out light right back to them, much like the street signs and speed limit signs are using retroreflective material. So that was developed about 85 years ago by 3M Corporation. So the technology is not new, and about 75 years ago it was first used in fabric. And it's been a long time in adoption, and part of it is difficulty washing materials. So the safety jackets have limited lifespan, and even this jacket, they say, don't machine wash it or dry clean it. You can only spot clean it. So that's been a major impediment. But still, I hope more people become aware of now that garments are available that are fully retroreflective and not just an adornment or piping or something, and seek those garments out and wear them, especially at night if they're walking the dog or whatever, taking a stroll, patronizing our restaurants, whatever. So thanks for discussing public safety today.
Thank you. Is there anyone in Zoom?
See no hands raised, Mrs.
See no hands raised. Thank you, Mr. Hurd, and thank you for allowing us to continue on. We started without you, but we will now go to agenda item 5, discussion and vote, outdoor restaurant and retail permit application rules and regulations. I believe this is to codify the change.
That's correct, Mrs. Mahan. It's just encompassing all of the changes to the policy that the board had discussed at their previous meeting.
Questions? Mr. DeCoursey?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank Ms. Marr for incorporating the changes that we had discussed at the last meeting. And just a question, I know we had talked about the 2 time periods that were, or 2 deadlines for acceptance of applications. I see the language here, once in the spring, once in the summer, but were we going to do it April 1st and July 1? Is that what was discussed, or was it a different time period?
No, I think you are correct. We can amend that.
Okay,
to have the dates
I guess the only thing I'd say, I'll make a motion to move approval of these changes and maybe suggest that we put approximately April 1st and July 1. And I like the idea of having the reference to check the board's website, but that might, if someone's going here first, it will help them out a little bit more in the timing.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Hurd. Any questions or comments on that?
Just a quick question.
Mr. Helmut?
Thank you. I appreciate this work. I think that it does make sense. I know I wasn't able to be at the previous meeting, but I know we've discussed this before. And one thing that really impressed me was that the town incurs real costs, particularly in the parklets that we're taking parking spaces for. The town brings in equipment. So I'm glad to see that the fees for that be more commensurate, at least with the cost. And I think also, helping to ensure that those are not requested frivolously. So I think that's good. I will say that I'm happy to kind of see how this goes in this current season. I know there's a couple of locations that will certainly notice the difference of only being able to use 2 spaces. And, I think that we've had it's fair to try that out now, because we certainly are balancing public resources, the parking and for the business. So, but I'll be kind of paying attention to that, and I would encourage the town staff and the board to remain listening if businesses have feedback about that, or particularly their customers about that particular change. but I'm happy to support this tonight.
Thank you. Any other further questions or comments? If not, on a motion as amended by Mr. DeCoursey, I'm sorry, I don't know why he's doing that, to approve, seconded by Mr. Hurd. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, unanimous vote. I think I hit stop that time. Let me see if I can do silent. Sorry, I'm waiting for an expedite to come in. We go to agenda item 6 from our Transportation Advisory Committee, TAC, thickly settled district 25 miles per hour signage, signs.
Good evening. I'm Jim Stubby. I'm the Transportation Advisory Committee Chair. We're back again now to talk about the rest of Mass Ave, since, in prior sessions in this committee, as we've talked about, we voted for 3 safety zones already. 2 of them aren't signed yet. They'll appear in the spring once the weather gets better and DPW can get out there, and hopefully we'll get the 25-mile-an-hour signs up. So basically, the reason we're back again is to be consistent with the other roadways as we've transitioned the speed limits on all of the places we've put up the thickly settled district 25-mile-an-hour yellow and orange, yellow and black signs, about 1,000 feet apart or less, and they seem to be working from what I can tell and from all of the data we've collected so far. It seems to actually be having an impact. It's hard to drive up those streets now without actually seeing the sign in your face pretty constantly. So there's really no excuse for anyone not to be able to say, yep, no, I didn't know what the speed limit was. So basically, what we're here to ask for today, if you can go to the next slide, I think we know what the signs look like. They're the 25-mile-an-hour signs. The 3 segments that are there are approximately 1.7 miles total. Based on having walked that street 3 or 4 times, I came up with about 24 locations which we're proposing to put the new signs that kind of start and end the zones and end the transitions from the safety zones and all that kind of stuff. So they fit in with the other tenor. So what we're doing for tonight is to request that you all hear what we want to do and have you all either agree or disagree, and then go from there. And then the rest of the deck is just pictures. And at some point I will, once everything's approved, I'll bring a new deck to Mr. Feeney that will say explicitly where all the signs for the safety zones and the other signs go. I think we've got most of that in place already. I just haven't taken that final pass to make sure we've got the boundaries right and all that. But we'll do that. That's an implementation detail.
Turn it over to my colleagues. Mr. Helmut?
Well, very gladly move approval with appreciation, which we say a lot with TAC, but we really mean it. This represents a lot of legwork, and it's a tremendous service to the residents of the town that you and your colleagues are willing to do that, and to the board and to the town staff. And I agree. I find myself going down Gray Street frequently, and the launch of those signs there is just a really helpful reminder, especially in the street when you're heading down towards the center, and it's very easy to go too fast. And it's really important. We've had feedback from residents at various points along Gray Street. So I think that it's the population of these signs, I think it's a great investment of the town's time, of your time, and of the resources to get those signs to remind people what they learn at the town borders, which is that it's a 25-mile-an-hour town. And I also want to express my appreciation to my colleagues for so consistently supporting our progress in traffic safety, and also to the manager and his team for stepping up and looking for ways to be responsive to the residents who have come to the board and to the town and to the board members. So I think this represents really, really good progress, combined with some of the other things that maybe the manager will see fit to announce some new business about, some new crosswalk safety that we have implemented as well. But I think the progress is palpable and very much appreciated. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And just to not forget, APD is out there.
Yes.
Doing
Thank you.
enforcement. I watched them pull people over on Mystic Street up by the country club and going, wow, that's a spot where I go, I don't know how we're going to slow people down up there, but they're up there quite a bit. I've seen them on the road.
Yeah, thank you
enough times.
thank you for
They're a
catching me on that.
presence.
They are a critical partner in this effort as well.
Mr. Hurd?
I'll second that. And I was going to mention APD because living up off of Park Ave, I often am driving up and down Park Ave, and I'm now, as a motorist, very aware that I could get pulled over if I'm not obeying the 25-mile-per-hour speed limit. And it certainly, you know, as you go in 25 miles an hour, you can see it definitely is much slower than you otherwise would be going, which is a good thing. And, you know, people's reaction time at 25 miles an hour is a lot safer than 40 miles an hour. So, you know, as someone that drives there and has kids cross Park Ave often, you know, certainly happy to have APD out there enforcing the, all the work that we get out of TAC and all the great recommendations.
Mr. DeCoursey.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Stubby, for the presentation this evening, all the work. And the area that I really noticed this is on Mystic Street, where I travel on that, and it is that the repetition really just hits it home, and it's spread out there. And you're absolutely right. That was a street where you say, how is it going to slow down? But there are constant reminders, and I think it's a good thing. The other thing I want to commend you for is the placement of the first sign as you come into Arlington, because we talked earlier about when you first cross the Parkway, there is too many signs, and this is going to be a little bit further up in front of Menominee Tavern, which I think is perfect because it will be noticed there as opposed to just as you're entering.
Okay, thank you. So on a motion to approve by Mr. Helmut, seconded by Mr. Hurd, any further questions or comments? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous vote. The next agenda item, it was under correspondence received, but I thought TAC should take a victory lap on this one.
That's, you know, I've been adamant about that as a manager over my career. You have to remind people of all the things they've done, because if you don't, you never actually take that victory lap. You don't say, gee, we really actually got a lot done. A lot, and not just TAC, it's APD, it's Mr. Feeney, it was John when he was here, it's, you know, the board. We've come a long way since we started on this path, right? So this is the victory lap, you know, 2 slides worth. It won't take too long. But I think you limited me to 3 minutes today, so I'll try to go fast.
You take your extra time on this one if you like.
Yeah, here we go. So basically, what I'm going to do is just run through quickly what we did in the last couple of years. So we've rescinded all of the speed limits that are above 25. The only one left, I think, is on the frontage road for Route 2, and that's because the DCR owns that, or the state owns that. We don't own it. We could probably go to them and get them to change it, but I'm not sure I care so much over there. So we removed all those signs that were above 25. Well, actually, they're 25 and up. Anywhere where there were regulatory signs under the SSR, they all got removed. We installed those thickly settled district 25-mile-an-hour signs on all roadways where speed limits were rescinded and recommended. We've created 5 safety zones with speed limits of 20 miles an hour. That was, I mean, we had one tucked in the back end down near Thorndike Field or whatever, but that was kind of in a funny spot. Like, I don't think anybody actually knew it was there. But I never knew it was there until somebody told me anyway. But now we've got ones that are going to be right in people's faces. You know, as I've mentioned before, Mass Ave is the elephant in the room. Half the accidents, half the pedestrian strikes, half the bike strikes are on Mass Ave. So this is a start, and we'll continue hopefully in partnership with the town and Mr. Feeney and everyone else to keep making Mass Ave more and more safe. And, you know, if we could take half of the things off the table, that would be phenomenal. I mean, we won't get all the way there, obviously, but we'll do. And just to give some perspective, so, you know, how much of the town does that cover? It covered about 11 miles out of 103 public miles, so it's over almost 11%. We removed 32 regulatory signs, installed 94 thickly settled with the approval we just did. There'll be 94 thickly settled district ones, 20 safety zone signs, and the speed limits at 20. And as you can see, just visually on the map there, the yellow lines basically says, you know, we've hit all of the major connectors. Kind of, there's still a few there that maybe could use a little bit more attention, but not many. I think we kind of covered most of the big streets and the biggest impact. There's still trouble spots around town that we want to work at. You know, if you're running through the streets, Mystic, Route 2A Summer Street, Route 60, So Pleasant, Mystic, Chestnut, Medford, Gray Street, Lake Street, Wachusett, and then kind of the funny ones were the stray 20 miles an hour for Mountain, Pheasant, and North Union, because they predated the school zone signs. So the school zone signs came in and sort of slopped all over the top of the 20-mile-an-hour sign, so we just took them out to avoid any confusion. And as we mentioned, the safety zones we have on Summer Street for Buzzell and Arlington Catholic Fields. I've done a little spot checking with the radar gun TAC has, and it's better than it used to be. It's still, I think we still need a little work there. Maybe when we get the RFP in that area, that'll help, or if we have curb bump outs at the crosswalk, that'll help. Or as you and I have talked, Mr. Feeney, maybe the speed feedback signs from APD in that area for a little while might remind people. And especially, it seemed that people were going faster, going eastbound for some reason. But not quite sure, but, and then as we already mentioned, Mass Ave, and then the other 3 Mass Ave areas with the 25 mile an hour. So go to the next slide, I won't really run through this TAC. I brought this to TAC last time and said, all right, we've done a lot, what do we do next? You know, and TAC sometimes gets lost in their own weeds, so they got lost in their own weeds in that discussion, but I figured I'd come here and say, so we did a lot, what else do we want to do? And, you know, we maybe don't want to spend a lot of time discussing tonight, but I'd like you to think about it. You can message me separately. You know, do we want to continue with the safety zones? Do we want to do further enhancements like the RFB locations or paint on the street? You know, somebody mentioned on Pleasant Street in TAC to put a don't block the box at every one of the crosswalks, because when traffic's backed up, they're backed up across the crosswalks. Simple thing, some paint, you're done, and you know, if it daylights the intersection, that helps everybody. So that's some of the cheaper stuff we can do in the long run. I guess that kind of is in the theme of entrenching what's been done. We've covered a lot of the roads, as we saw on the other one. You know, what else can we do in partnership with the town to get there, and do we continue, you know, making other streets a safety zone? That's just the question. If you have any thoughts, I'm more than happy to jot them down, but you can also just, like I said, email me later and we'll come back to you all with a recommendation.
Thank you. First, I'll take a motion to receive
Move receipt.
by Mr. Hurd. Is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. DeCoursey. Any further questions or comments? I would just say, moving forward, something I know that TAC and the manager are working on, that will probably, maybe after town meeting or something like that, we'll sort of talk about temporary tools or whatever we want to talk about in terms of when we have something that happens, something we can put in place that the Transportation Advisory Committee, the town manager, the Department of Public Works, DPW, have all sort of sanctioned would be a best, especially when we need a temporary fix to for something that has to go into the process that sometimes takes 1, 2, 3. We used to say 5 years, but we don't even have to look at that anymore, you know, thanks to our town manager. And Transportation Advisory, and then the other thing, which is something this board hears all the time, and we come up and discuss it, and we have a trial by error, or error by error, is speed bumps, or whatever the correct term is for speed bumps now, pin cushion, street cushions, whatever they are. So where you're saying things to talk about in the future, that's something that you.
Can I comment on our inadvertent ski slope? The ski jump?
Yes.
So there's a part of me that every time I come up on something that's non-compliant, I think about Somerville and Powder Hill Road in front of the school, where the contractor made a mistake and put in 5-inch speed bumps rather than 3, which basically bottoms everybody's car out if you're over 10 miles an hour. So, and they never have changed it. And all I think every time is, what, put this in here, and why didn't they go fix it to adjust it to the rest? So I worry, you know, that our speed bump, which is not so awful, but it's not an ADA compliant sidewalk, right? It's not flat on the top. It's kind of peaked like that. So we do need to do something with it, but I don't know what. I mean, I actually don't mind having it there. I think it really does slow cars down. It's actually pretty effective.
It certainly does.
But you got a stop sign 30 feet away or 20 feet away too. So coming up the hill, it's not like it's going to make a lot of difference.
You'd
We
be
need
amazed.
some warning, though.
Yeah,
We just need a little warning. 'Cause
Yeah.
if you hit it at
You gotta be able to
speed,
see it. That's the main thing.
Yeah,
A little bit more paint and a few more signs.
you just need some
Well, yeah,
more
we need a
signs.
few more signs,
Yeah.
right? I think there were more before, actually. Weren't there more coming up the hill when you first went in? It seemed like there was one there and then it disappeared for some reason. Maybe I'm misremembering, but.
So just
Anyway,
by
not
that
to complain
suggestion
about
alone, we see we'll still be discussing them. And then you'll tell me next time we discuss them, what's the correct term for them. So on a motion, move receipt by Mr. Hurd, seconded by Mr. DeCoursey. Any further questions or comments? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, unanimous vote. Thank you. So please pass on our thanks as always.
I will, absolutely.
We now go to an update from our long-range planning committee. I will first, I'm going to switch the order of speakers, start with our town manager, Mr. Feeney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Board Administrator has a PDF to bring up. I thought it would be helpful to show a few iterations of the long-range plan over time to help illustrate where we've arrived at as of the most recent long-range planning committee meeting, which was held on Friday morning, January 9th. To get there, I thought we would first start with the long-range plan that was in Novus as of June of 2023, when this board voted their override commitments for the November 2023 override. So this essentially was the plan as it existed prior to the last override, and I thought it might be helpful to identify where there have been some variances or deviations from our projections at that time for where we would be in '27 versus where we now believe we will be in fiscal year '27. So I'm not sure if we're able to zoom in at all, but I've highlighted a few things that are helpful to track over time. The first we'll see falls under what we call growth factor, and that relates to student enrollment changes. That lives within the appropriation side of the ledger under the Arlington Public School budget. So we can see here I've highlighted fiscal year 26, 27, and 28, where we were expecting at that point in time in 2023 to start to see a fairly significant decline in student enrollment, and based on the formula the board adopted as part of that override commitment, it would have resulted in commensurate reductions in the Arlington Public School budget. So we can put a pin in that and we'll track it over time. Scrolling down to a few other things that were highlighted are insurance, which is largely our health insurance budget. And I've highlighted the number $25,777,000. In June of 2023, that's what we projected our fiscal year 27 health insurance budget to be. And it would get there by assuming in this model that our historical health insurance growth would hold true into the future. So that assumed a just north of 5% year-over-year growth in premiums. And then the line under that, if we could scroll back to the left, is for state assessments. So those are what we know as cherry sheet charges. So if we scroll back over, we'll note that that number was $4,285,000 roughly. So that's where we expected to be in fiscal year 27 back in 2023. And then the final thing I'll point out, though not highlighted, is in June of 2023, when we were discussing the prior override, that the vote for which took place in November of 2023, we were projecting at that time, at the end of fiscal year 2026, to have a balance, i.e. a deficit of $9,480,000. So that's when we first projected the deficit to reappear. So now we can go to page 2, which is another iteration of the long-range plan. And this, as shown by the label on the top, is what we call Appendix D. So this was published in the Finance Committee's report to 2025 annual town meeting in April of 2025. So there are a few highlights here. Notably, in fiscal year 2026, we'll see in the school department budget a growth factor introduction of $1,070,000. So as we had just pointed out, previously we had expected enrollment to decline, but in fact our experience, instead of losing 9 students in fiscal year '26 as projected, we actually gained 115 students. So that created a fairly significant swing in our budget at that time. So then, scrolling down to the bottom, Ms. Marr, and then over to the right, we'll see highlighted there are, the 115 students, back down a little bit, apologies, the 115 students in 2026 that we gained, and then this shows how we had projected to see a fairly steady decline in enrollment over the out years. If we want to scroll over, we see 53 students, 160 students, 68 students. So those student enrollment projections, if we were to scroll back to the growth factor line at the top of the budget that was just highlighted in year 1, you'll see result in those commensurate red figures in the out years. So a loss of $493,000, $1.48 million, and then in '29, $632,000. So those are things that have changed, and you'll see that in our most recent iteration. But I will just point out, if we could go down to the bottom of fiscal year '27, a little bit to the left. I've highlighted here, as of April, we were projecting a deficit in fiscal year '27 of $13.5 million. So that is just a little bit of history that brings us now to page 3, which is the long-range financial projection as presented to the Long-Range Planning Committee on January 9th. So here, if we can stick in the first column for fiscal year '27 and scroll down to the yellow highlights, we'll see here the first highlight is insurance. So this is one area in particular where this sort of illustrates what is a much larger healthcare cost crisis, not necessarily unique to Arlington, certainly being faced by other municipalities or employers and employees. So this has been one significant cost pressure. We are part of the GIC, and all cost increases to date have been absorbed into the health insurance premiums, which as an employer, we pay the lion's share of, between 75% and 85%. So as we saw previously, back in June of 2023, we projected our insurance budget to be roughly $25.7 million in fiscal year '27. We are now projecting an insurance budget in fiscal year '27 of $29.1 million. So this is a $3.4 million or 13% variance from a prior projection. As I noted, we had projected increases comparable to our historical average of just above 5% year over year, but instead we've experienced 3 consecutive years of double-digit premium growth, and we are currently looking at 11.25% projected health premium inflation going into fiscal year '27. And then if we could scroll down to the bottom where we have the projected student enrollment growth. So as I had noted previously, student enrollment has been highly variable and projections have not necessarily held. It is, of course, very challenging to, while you can follow birth rates in a community, you can't do something similar with move-ins to the community and renters, and what the impact of having a brand-new high school may mean if folks are not just moving in to follow public education through the elementary school all the way through high school, but they may move in later years as well. So obviously, we saw a very significant swing in fiscal year 2026 that led to, a $1 million variance in the budget. So, based on updated enrollment projections, we are now projecting largely steady enrollment for the foreseeable future. So what we'll see if we scroll across to the right here is that we're in fact holding these numbers steady. So that also means we have removed the assumed budgetary reductions based on a decline in enrollment because our current projections have us remaining fairly steady. So looking ahead, this is certainly prudent as this growth factor was a bit unpredictable. and may have underestimated the budgetary needs of the school department based on enrollment. And then finally, we could scroll back up to state assessments. This is not a significant, as significant a swing in terms of it only had a six-figure impact, but in fiscal year '27, we're projecting state assessments to come in $4,547,259. So these can be variable each year based on such things as charter school or school choice sending tuitions, our MBTA assessment, for example, veteran aid. There's really a long list of them. So comparing our June 2023 projection to our current estimate for fiscal year '27, we see that this expense is estimated to come in at roughly $262,000 greater than projected. And then one other thing I will highlight for the board and members of the public is line G, solid waste. So this is a new addition to the long-range plan. So we've called out costs associated with our curbside collection contract to be more transparent about the cost of that contract and its projected growth over time. And this is relevant to the discussion about the 2023 override because, as this board knows, there was a commitment to increase the town's budget by $250,000 at that time in fiscal year '25 to cover expected increases with the cost of a new solid waste contract. That was done at a time without the benefit of a competitive bidding process, which was ultimately completed over the course of calendar year '24 and into '25. So with the benefit of hindsight now having completed that process, I can now most definitively say that that increase should have been closer to $1 million. So as a reminder, we have two separate contracts, one for collection and hauling and another for disposal. The cost per ton of solid waste disposal at the waste-to-energy facility in North Andover that we use went up alone 10% per ton from fiscal year '25 to '26, and we typically generate between 11 and 12,000 tons of trash annually, so that is a sizable dollar increase in of itself. And obviously, we have our new curbside collection contract with WM for fiscal years '26 to fiscal year '30. We expect a roughly 5 to 6% average year-over-year growth over the course of this contract. This was done largely to defray the cost of the transition in year one, which would have largely been unaffordable otherwise, and was also impacted by the prevailing wage rates being, we have to track what's called Teamsters Local 25. They were out of contract for a few years, recently ratified, and the state department that manages prevailing wages had reincorporated that into prevailing wages looking forward. So we now have the prevailing wages that will be in effect for labor for the first 3 years of our contract. The last 2 years will be subject to negotiations for a future contract, so we are just currently carrying an escalator of roughly 5% per year on the labor side of things, because that's largely what the increase was as a result of this most recent agreement. Of course, I'll just note if containerization through carts has the desired impact of driving down tonnages over time, we could ultimately see some savings resulting in reduced budgetary growth and potentially the generation of free cash in that line, but that is sort of a big if. But I will say, though it is still early, it does appear there will be some return on our investment of carts over time in this regard, as our monthly tonnage data that we've started to receive since July 1 does indicate meaningful reductions in both our trash and recycling streams. We just have to, it's early to see how much that will play out. And then one other element that's worth highlighting with regard to solid waste is that for the first time in our history, we also now own our single stream recycling. So this was a cost not previously borne by the town after being able to extend, and favorably so, our prior contract for an additional 3 years, holding us harmless from this cost that has already been borne by all other municipalities for a few years. Now, we have to pay roughly $125 per ton to have our recycling stream processed at a materials recovery facility, also known as a MRF, into the various commodity streams. So the blended value of the commodities, because we own the recycling, is then subtracted from that $125 per ton charge. And if the blended value exceeds the charge, the town would see the revenue. If it doesn't, then we pay the net difference between the two. So at the time of bidding and receiving proposals for our solid waste contract, at this time last year and even into the spring of this year, we were expecting and budgeting to ultimately pay $58 per ton based on a blended commodity value of roughly $66 for our recyclables on the secondary market. Instead, the recycling commodity market has faltered significantly, and through the first 5 months of fiscal year '26, we've been paying on average $100 per ton to process our recycling. So where we have historically generated over 4,000 tons of recycling per year, this has been a significant budgetary swing in the current year, and we don't yet have any indication that values are going to recover. Part of that downward slide, cardboard and brown paper, that value is down 40%. Mixed paper is down 60%. Plastic number 1 is down 62% in value, and plastic number 2 is down 88% of value. So those are major components of our recycling stream that don't have as much value on the secondary market, and those things usually play off for cardboard, paper, and mixed paper is sort of off demand and how, especially with cardboard, what shipping looks like. So we hope to see perhaps a bit of a recovery following the holiday season where there is sort of an uptick in shipping. And then plastic prices on the secondary market usually track with the cost of oil, as I understand it. This is certainly new to me, but when the cost of a barrel of oil is fairly low, I understand plastic manufacturers tend to pursue sort of raw petroleum products to make new plastic instead of the added cost of working with recycled materials. So that is something else that will track over time. So with regard to expenditures, those are just a few things I wanted to highlight as having been significant deviations based on where we projected to be at this time back starting in November of &23 in advance of the last override. With regard to revenues, obviously we rely heavily on property tax revenue as our largest source, and that is very reliable. Another thing that we factor in is local receipts. Those have also been strong over the years, and in fact so strong that they have generated free cash in all of the years that have interceded, and that has been the largest driver of what has eliminated what had been a deficit in '26 and then helped to drive down the deficit to the point it's at now in fiscal year '27. The only local receipt, and we've heard about this during our quarterly budget updates, that is steadily declining as a local revenue source is marijuana excise tax. That peaked in fiscal year '21 at roughly $350,000. By fiscal year '25, it had already dropped 50% down to $166,000 annually, and it is continuing to decline in fiscal year '26. So that is one area where I think, not just Arlington, but many municipalities expected to see in a steady and increasing revenue stream that has not proven or borne out. And then the other thing, because it is our next largest source of revenue, is state aid. You'll see on line A, which is, it's a highly variable revenue source for us. Obviously, we don't have any control over it, nor can we reliably predict it. It is most certainly a forward-looking endeavor, so you cannot use historical data, because really it's based on the Commonwealth's budget, which is also forward-looking and based on the economic data that they're receiving in terms of sales tax and other sources of revenue that exist across the Commonwealth. So unfortunately for fiscal year '26, which we as town officials rely on, is something called UGA, which is Unrestricted General Government Aid. For fiscal year '26, we only received a 1.1% increase, which was compared to 3.2% and 3% in fiscal year '23 and '24, respectively. So we, did not see that same level of growth that we had been seeing over the past few years. Chapter 70 education aid has also been highly variable and also not easily predicted moving forward. That's why you'll see in this plan we are carrying modest growth assumptions of just shy of 1% from '26 to '27, and then moving forward, because it is prudent to instead wait for the governor's budget to be released on January 28th to give us our first indication of what state aid will be in the coming fiscal year. Because obviously any increase greater than 0.98% on that line would have the effect, and a fairly significant one, on lowering the deficit, not just in '27, but in each year there moving forward. So I think those are the things I wanted to highlight as they stand today as having been changes or variances within the long-range plan. It has been a very busy long-range planning committee meeting season. We are meeting at an increased cadence. We have really evaluated all of the assumptions in the plan, made some changes to the model as it exists today, some of the formulas and how we calculate the figures on this page. We've been working with the Finance Committee, the Board of Assessors, the Retirement Board, really everyone we can to get an understanding of how else we may change our assumptions to lower the deficits and help control costs moving forward.
Thank you. Mr. DeCoursey.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Feeney, for the presentation this evening, for your leadership, both as town manager and at our long-range planning committee meetings. And as you just heard, and as the public just heard, I mean, there are some significant challenges that we faced, really unlike anything that we've seen, certainly since I've been on the board, and probably going back to the early 2000s, in terms of uncertainty with state aid coupled with increases in various costs. And I just want to comment, I'm going to make a few random comments about both the numbers, but the timeline too. And Mr. Feeney had mentioned that last April, the deficit for fiscal '27, as shown in the long-range plan, was over 13 million. Now it's down to 3.7, and it may come down a little bit further, but it is clear, as we had voted, that we will need to ask the voters for an override on March 28th, and what the expectation or what the recommendation will be. Can't tell you what the number is, and Mr. Feeney will be making that recommendation, but because of the unknown of state aid and a few other factors, that will be known later this month and in early February. But what it will be is a 3-year period. So what we'd be looking at is 27, 28, and 29. And that's consistent with what we've done in prior overrides in terms of the ask. If successful, there would not be another request that would hit the tax rolls until fiscal 30. But just commenting on, and I wanted to comment on insurance and state aid to start, but insurance now is about 12% of our overall budget, over 10%. That is slated to grow at 11.25%. And we're in a situation where our current commitment on town increases in town spending is 3.25%, and that is likely to continue these next few years. So if 12% of your budget's going up double digits, and it's going to be close to double digits likely for fiscal '28 as well, it creates a crisis. And so we saw that. We have the uncertainty with state aid where last year at least, when we receive our cherry sheet, which basically tells us what our receipts are for state aid and what our assessments are, the largest assessment being the MBTA, the assessment actually outpaced the increase in receipts a year ago. And so by growing more, it reduced that number, so the net increase was less than 4%. As Mr. Feeney has mentioned here, right now, the long-range plan shows a 1% increase, but a 2.5% increase in the assessment. That gets you below 1% growth in state aid. So when you're looking to provide services as close as you can to maintaining services, and you're looking at roughly 3.5% to 4% to try to do that, when you have a 1% decline in state aid, which is a big percentage, second biggest percentage of our receipts, it puts tremendous strain on what you look at. And when we look at prior overrides, I can tell you this for certain, when the recommendations come in, prior overrides, there have been commitments to spending plus maybe additional spending that the town might have. This last override, we needed to fund increases in teacher salaries in the school's strategic plan. There were others earlier in terms of additions. There will be no additions in this. This will just allow us to continue for the next few years. And I want to commend, again, Mr. Feeney, but I want to commend all departments and boards. We had the Board of Assessors in here in December. They have agreed to increase the amount of their overlay surplus that they will give back. Mr. Mann is constantly looking for new growth opportunities and assessments, and that may go up a little bit. We heard what the retirement board was willing to do in terms of reducing that pension amount down to 4.76%. We're still working with the schools, but the increase that you will see in the school budget will be lower than what it was these past few years over the next 3-year period. I'm talking just the base increase, not the additions. There'll be no additions for growth or to fund the plan. So committees, departments are working really hard. Mr. Feeney had mentioned earlier, perhaps not, I believe at this meeting, in terms of what's going on with hiring presently and looking to cut expenses, and that will continue. And I think between now and the end of the month, we're going to ask, let's keep looking, let's try to drive this number down as low as possible, because we all take that aspect of being on the board very seriously. When we go out to ask voters to spend more in taxes, we only want to ask what we believe is necessary to fund. It's a very difficult decision. It's going to be a difficult discussion, but it's as I see, it's absolutely necessary to get us through the next few years. And again, just in terms of timing, we're due to vote commitments in a number on February 9th. That will be after we hear the governor's budget and after we receive a recommendation from Mr. Feeney. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. DeCoursey. And I guess I would say once, when we started the long-range planning meetings this year, right after town meeting, the discussion was, and Mrs. Morgan was at those meetings as a member of the school committee, we were in the 22 million in terms of a possible override ask. And since then, the town manager and superintendent schools and this board and the school committee have been looking at what we can do to try to get the number as low as possible, but not to the point that some people were saying, we want to keep, level funding, level of services the same. Even in the best case scenario, that's just something that's not feasible. in terms of moving forward with the town with a 3.25% budget. The schools have combined their general education and special education budgets, but back in September, I believe, the presentation they gave, they had estimated a 4.5% combined increase for that. And they've recently come into long-range planning, the superintendent and our colleagues on the school committee, with a combined 4.25%. And we're still exploring conversations about perhaps looking at 28 and 29, or 28 and 29, not 29 and 30, whether that 4.25 can somehow also be reduced. And even in the best-case scenario, with an override that is successful, if we can make the case to the voters and they choose to give that to us, besides reductions on the town side, and both the manager and the superintendent have agreed to a hiring freeze. And then they're continuing in those discussions beyond just fiscal '27, what that looks like. Do you hold on certain positions and not backfill them? But from the presentation that I saw the other night to the school committee, they're planning on, even if the override passes, $1 million in reductions in terms of what the school services will look like. And I know on the town side, the manager, besides what he's highlighted in terms of solid waste and unpredictability of state aid, and it is what it is, I'm not saying anything negative or nefarious about that, just in terms of moving forward and sticking with a 3.25% budget, even that's been challenging. And to me, that's a bare minimum of what people expect for town services, as well as for our town employees. As we know, the last override, and, we won't go back into history, but we had a different town manager then, and I can tell you this board, including through myself, questioned, but it is what it is, and the current town manager and his staff are now dealing with some factors that were inherited and some that just we have no control over. So the conversations are continuing. I know a lot of people are asking us, what is the number? We don't know what that is yet, but what I can say is we're doing everything we can to, because we understand that, when I talk to people, and we all do in the street, and we say what it is in terms of solid waste, what it is in terms of healthcare, they say back to me, well, my healthcare costs have gone up too. and I have a job in high tech, and, but I think if we, can make the point that, we are limited by Proposition 2.5, and, other people can have a different conversation on that the other day. But if you look at some of the driving factors that the manager and the superintendent have highlighted, a bare bones and not quite level service budget right now looks at 3.25% on the town side and 4.25 on the school side, with the 11.25% increase in healthcare, with the solid waste that, we came in short at 750,000, so close to $1 million, with the unpredictability of the market that we thought for recycling, which Arlington is very, very good about doing that, but it's costing us money more than, we're not even breaking even. And it is what it is. I mean, that's a choice we make. We've made that commitment, and we'll stick to it. So we all wish we could say what the number is, but because this is a sort of accelerated, coinciding with the local election, March 28th election, it wouldn't be responsible of us to make any predictions, not knowing what state aid will be, not knowing what further belt tightening the town manager and superintendent it can put into place. So there is no number right now. There's numbers being floated out there. We're trying to bring it down as much as we can, but also a lot of people have spoken about services that they care about on the school and town side, and some that were lost, and it's taken us 7 to 11 years, depending on what it was in terms of libraries or professionals in the schools around, social workers, guidance counselors, et cetera. So all that's being discussed, so not to give such a somber thing. Mr. Hurd?
I just wanted to say, if the town's making money on all the Amazon boxes that are coming through my house, I want a tax break.
If you could save us. So with that, we don't necessarily need to take a motion on anything, and we will, in all probability, have another update at our January 26th meeting, I think is the next. And then, of course, we take the vote on February 9th, and we're waiting for the governor's budget on January 28th. So with that, I will go to, if there's no questions or comments, new business, Ms. Marr?
No new business, thank you, Mrs. Mahan.
Attorney Cunningham?
No business, thank you, Madam Chair.
Our town manager, Mr. Feeney?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few brief things. Just wanted to mention that as you pointed out, the Select Board's next meeting is on January 26th. That will be through the use of our new one-meeting platform that we are launching through Meeting Management. So that date is actually the official launch date of the platform, though we are going to make it available to the public next week after the holiday. So that is a tool that will be impacting a number of boards, committees, and commissions here in town, i.e. those who used the Novus Agenda platform. So we're hopeful that the public appreciates the new platform. It is very much so user-friendly, and it provides a high degree of searchability. Of course, our old platform was being sunset by the provider, so it was time for us to change, and we've been going through the process of not only designing templates, as we heard about in a presentation a few months ago, that will move us towards closer to digital ADA compliance, but also conducting a wide range of trainings with not only staff, but with various members of boards, committees, and commissions. Our volunteers have been coming to Town Hall to get sort of training on how to use the platform and how to use the new templates that we've developed, which are for agendas and meeting minutes, going to look largely uniform across the organization for the first time in our history. So that is exciting, and that is a big step towards accessibility, because the templates have been designed for screen readers and other elements that will make it easier for the public to digest what are the most voluminous records we put online, being meeting agendas and minutes. So I will also, for the public's benefit, and as Mr. Helmuth alluded to earlier, note that we did go live with 4 new rectangular rapid flash beacons at particular high-volume pedestrian crossings in town. These were awarded to the town through a grant from MassDOT, so the equipment was free. The town had to handle the installation and civil construction to accommodate the installation at sites. They were on Chestnut Street at Medford Street, so now there is a second RRFB array in that stretch that was recently reconstructed. We've installed one at Park Ave at Oakland Ave, one on Eastern Ave at the Brackett School, and one on Mass Ave at the crossing with Dundee Road, which is more colloquially known as the Trader Joe's crossing. So one thing I'll highlight, which is a great new feature, is that they have a spotlight function on them. So when activated after dark, and as the prior speaker alluded to during open forum, this is the time of year where it is darkest earliest. So that is a great new feature, and it's something we are already receiving positive feedback on, and we hope to incorporate that into all future RRFB installations that we do. So once activated, that spotlight shines at the crosswalk and illuminates the crossing so that drivers will have greater visibility of the pedestrians in the roadway. And at the same time, we'll just note we also did install a solar-powered radar driver feedback sign also on Park Ave in the vicinity of Oakland Ave. We had, through the police department, installed a temporary unit there and had been tracking compliance over time as it does data collection, and it proved that the presence of that sign reminding drivers of their speed, when coupled with the array of new speed limit signs that you see along that roadway, there was indications that once we put that sign up and it was functioning on a temporary basis, it was meaningfully reducing speeds, so we moved forward with a permanent installation of that sign, and we did so with support from an earmark from the state's budget to support that endeavor. So I just wanted to offer those brief updates now, and we do have 2 more rectangular rapid flash beacons coming from MassDOT in the spring of this year for installation in the upcoming construction season. So more to report on later. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. DeCoursey?
No new business.
Mrs. Morgan?
No new business.
Mr. Hurd?
Just as a way to explain my tardiness, I'll congratulate the Arlington Pee Wee AAA team for defeating Belmont tonight and getting a state tournament berth in March.
Oh, that's exciting. I love that. Mr. Hamlet?
I was going to get me in trouble with my day job with the remarks like that. No new business for me. Thank you.
I'll just note and report further on down the road at another meeting, but there was a meeting. There were many meetings on Friday, an 8 o'clock, a 10 o'clock, and an 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock was down in the manager's office, had Representative Rogers, Representative Garbely, and Representative Steve Owens from, I know he represents Watertown, I'm not sure.
I think he lives there too.
Watertown and some in Cambridge.
Watertown, Somerville, and Cambridge.
Some of Cambridge.
At their request, along with Mystic River Watershed, Charles River Watershed, Save the Alwike Brook, and that will continue on, so I'm not going to belabor the point anymore. When we move forward, in February or March, I'll report more extensively on that. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. DeCoursey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the board enter into executive session to discuss and consider the open meeting law complaint sent by Paul Pandolfo. To conduct those discussions in an open session may have a detrimental effect on the litigation position of the town and this public body. Therefore, executive session is proposed in accordance with the exception to the open meeting law set forth in General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3. Further move that we do not reconvene in open session, but that we adjourn within the session itself, the executive session.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Morgan. Any questions or comments? If not, roll call. Attorney Cunningham?
Mr. Gorsi?
Yes.
Mrs. Morgan?
Yes.
Mr. Helmuth?
Yes.
Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan?
Yes.
5-0 vote.
Thank you.